Hey everybody, welcome to class. Please turn your cameras on and all that stuff. Um, so welcome to class. Hi. Um, oh yeah, no problem. No problem, Evan. Okay, right off the bat, I want to put you guys into small groups for a warm-up activity. So yeah, this is it. So it's called Start Lines. Hopefully you downloaded that little document. It's very similar to the one we did last week on Thursday. It's a similar game. Let me show it to you. So the rules for this warm-up are, once you're in your small group, pick somebody to go first. And then each player picks a line from the start lines list for the player who will go right after they do. And then when it's your turn, you start with your start line, give a short speech, tell a story, something like that. Aim for like a minute. And then once you are done, then you pick somebody else in your team who hasn't gone yet, and you give them a start line for them to go. And then you go around until everybody's gone. Your whole goal is for everybody to go at least twice, but keep going until I pull you all back. Does that make sense for everybody? Awesome. All right, here are your groups. All right, let's create them. And there, let me make sure that everything looks right. Yeah, good. All right, and there are your rooms. I'll see you guys in about 10 minutes. Do you see your button? You should have room two available. Do you see it?
Uh, it just says leave meeting, but I don't see uh
Here, let me. Okay, don't do anything just yet. Let me move you to room one and then
oh, I
back.
see join one. Okay. Two.
There.
I see it. Thank
Perfect.
you.
Yeah, no
Thank
problem.
you.
Hey, Vanessa.
I got kicked out. I don't know. I think
What room were you in? Four, maybe?
four. Yeah, I was in a four.
Let me.
Sorry.
It's okay. Things happen. It looks weird on me right now. Eyes look weird. I look weird. I look tired. Welcome back. Still two groups that are still, I think, probably going. About 20 seconds, I'll be back. Oh, here's one. One more. Did you guys have fun? Okay, good. Good. Hopefully those are getting easier and easier. And it's just kind of becoming a comfortable thing to tell a story without very much preparation, just to kind of talk. Hopefully this group is feeling more comfortable for you, but that should translate into real life. It should. Hey, welcome back, everybody. Awesome. Did anybody have any stories that you came up with that you're especially proud of and want to share with the class? No pressure, just checking. All right, no worries. All right, guys. So today we are finishing up our discussion about persuasion, persuasive or rhetoric, as it's called in public speaking. So last week, Thursday, we cut class short, and there was a video for you to watch about ethos, logos, and pathos. There's also something in the module for reading about it if you want to. There's a lot of ways to learn about ethos, logos, and pathos. I'm hoping that you guys feel pretty confident in those. We're going to mess around with them some more today. So you should leave class today very confident that you know how to use those and how to use them in your speech. That's my hope. So before we jump into that, though, I have a quick, just in case you're one of the students who doesn't know what I'm talking about, I have a really quick 3-minute kind of review of what they are, using advertisements as a way to look at them. So this is a quick video. Let's watch it together, recapping ethos, pathos, and logos in advertisements. Make sure the volume's up.
The mission of Oh That's Good is to bring delicious comfort food with a nutritious twist to all of America. When you find something great, I always want to share it. That is my inspiration.
It doesn't matter.
Like Oprah attaching her name to something, that's major ethos, right? If only she would get political, but that's major ethos.
No matter how many records I break or how many rings I win, I know I can always be better. There are two of me. There's the person I am and the person I'm driven to be. We're in a constant chase to become the best version of myself.
Right, so that's a celebrity, he's an athlete, but also he's talking about his own credibility there. So that also works for ethos.
If you're intrigued by movie making as a career, this isn't the class for you. But if you need to make movies, if you feel like you can't rest until you've told this particular story that you're burning to tell, then I could be speaking to you. I'm Martin Scorsese, and this is my masterclass.
So that one I think is incredible because he's like discouraging you from even taking his class, but he's Martin Scorsese, so he can do that because of the ethos he brings. He's shockingly well known. So he's like discouraging people from taking his class. That's the level of ethos he brings to the table. That's ethos, credibility. So how are you going to bring that to your speech? Well, I'm guessing you're going to quote people, but you're also going to make sure that you are somebody credible to give your speech, right? So how are you going to add that to your speech?
Fantasy.
Is that right? Sarah? Clean enough?
Honey, you don't have to.
And that one is, of course, sex sells. I'm not sure if you're going to use that in your speech, but you might. This next one, yeah, emotions. Touch our emotions. That will motivate people.
To worry. Everyone's a little bit nervous on the first day of school.
Maybe I can make some new friends.
Okay.
Then I'll study hard and focus on school.
Okay.
And my own family. And my daughter.
Well, that sounds good. And then what?
And I can sing.
Well, that sounds like a good plan.
Clearly my white.
Yeah. So, yeah, pathos, right? So that was a car commercial, but it highly motivated me. I was interested. My emotions are touched every time I see that ad. So how can you do that with your audience? How can you engage our emotions? Not manipulate us, but engage our emotions. That car looks like a great idea. All cars, I think, should have that after seeing that commercial. I am highly persuaded, right? What about you? Then there's also this one.
Whitening toothpaste is not cutting it.
Time for white strips.
Crest Glamorous White Strips are the only ADA-accepted whitening strips proven to be safe and effective. They work below the enamel surface to whiten 25 times better than a leading whitening toothpaste.
That last one, I think, was more logos. It should have been put in the beginning here, but logos, when you're using logic to try and convince people.
But here's something you might not know. After you see what others paid, just sign up for free and TrueCar's certified dealers go to work. Not bad.
This guy, I want you to pay attention to how incredibly uncharismatic he is. How boring he is. How aggressively boring he is. There is no pathos here. There is no pathos. They want you to know there's no pathos, right? You are not being convinced by anything but pure, boring, frumpy logic. They want you to know that.
They help you find your car. Very nice. And make you competitive offers. This is the one.
Palm Wonderful Pure Pomegranate Juice is more than just full of antioxidants. It's packed with a burly battalion of free radical impaling antioxidants.
Right? It's packed with antioxidants. It's good for you. That commercial, though, had humor. So you could also argue there's some pathos going on in there. But the humor doesn't exactly, I don't know, does it motivate you? I'm not sure. It might.
You are my best friend and we've got some things to do.
That advertisement is just a list of features, isn't it? It's a flashy list of features for sure, but it is just a list of features. That's pretty logical. I like that.
I drop what I do. You are my best friend and we've got some things.
So that is a good, I think, quick refresher. Ethos, logos, pathos. Those are the things that you need to work into your speech, right? Some easy ways to do that, of course. Well, I'll let you figure them out, and talk in your small groups. But there's a lot of ways to do them. So ethos isn't just making sure that you have credibility. It isn't just making sure that you use good sources. There's lots of ways to do it. There's lots of ways to tap into logos and pathos too. So in order to explore that a little more fully, I have a longer video for us to watch. But before we watch it, I want you to think about some questions. I'm going to put in the chat for you to be chewing on just on your own while I get the video ready. And here the questions are. I'll also put them up on the, well, I'll just leave them in the chat. But the questions are, what do you think of the idea that logic and reasoning are slaves to passion and intuition? That's going to be put forward in the video we're about to watch as just simple truth. It's something we know now, that we are not logical creatures. We are creatures that think we're logical, but our logic only comes after we've already made a choice based on our passion. That's a weird thought. How do you feel about that? Is that something you're comfortable with, thinking of yourself as a creature that really isn't actually logical first, but much more passionate first? And the second question is, and this will make more sense when you watch the video, but has your elephant ever gone somewhere your writer didn't want you to? Another way to think of that is, have you ever found yourself feeling like you agree with somebody while your reasoning says they're wrong? What's up with that? What was going on there? In the video, we're going to look at that. And then lastly, as you watch this, what could you steal from Rogers? The Rogers we're going to be talking about here is Mr. Rogers. Does anybody know who Mr. Rogers is? A few of you, Jalen, somebody, about half of you. Good. So I'll tell you all who he is. Mr. Rogers was, the video I think will tell you, but just in case it doesn't, Mr. Rogers was a children's performer. He had a children's show back in like the 60s, 70s, 80s. He was like one of the first people to put together a live children's program that was designed to be educational. And he was a pioneer in that. Well, there came a time where our government wanted to cut funding to PBS in half. And so he was the person who went to go talk to our government about that. And he not only convinced them to not cut funding, but to increase it with one speech. And it's a shockingly persuasive speech. So this video is going to walk us through like what he did. And I think it's a really good video for breaking down the 3 pillars of persuasion, but showing how they can be used in different ways that you might not be thinking about. So as you watch this, be thinking about these questions. How comfortable are you with the idea that we're not exactly logical creatures, right? That's something first off I want you to be wrestling with. Number 2, have you ever been persuaded this way, do you think? And number 3, what can you steal from this? You're going to see a lot on here. You might want to have a piece of paper down so you can jot some things. There's going to be a lot of terms, a lot of ideas thrown out there with the different pillars of persuasion, different subcategories of them. So you might hear something that you like. So it's a good time to be paying attention. Make sure you take some notes. You don't need to take notes. There's no quiz or anything, but this is for your benefit. So here you go. Get comfy. Maybe get something to, this is a good time if you are hungry also to eat while we're watching, because it's about 20 minutes long. So get comfy. Here we go.
In 1751, Scottish philosopher David Hume published his masterwork, An Inquiry Concerning the Principles of Morals. In it, he states that you can never change someone's mind in an argument with just reasoning and logic. At first read, that sounded very strange to me, as I'm sure it does to you. But in Hume's view, we are animals primarily motivated and influenced by our intuitions and emotions. The majority of our convictions don't actually come from the rational analysis of facts. As he wrote in 1739, reason is and ought only to be the slave of the passions, and can never pretend to any other office than to serve and obey them. He therefore believed that in an argument, the only way you'll ever change someone's mind is by first speaking to their intuitions and affections. In the last decade, thanks to the research of psychologists like Daniel Kahneman, Jonathan Haidt, and others, we've discovered that Hume was mostly correct. Human reasoning is a servant to intuition.
Our minds are pattern matchers that make very quick judgments, within a second usually, and then we recruit our reasoning afterwards to justify what we've just done. So the metaphor I used in my previous book, The Happiness Hypothesis, was that the mind is divided into parts, like a rider on an elephant. The rider is our conscious reasoning. It's pretty small and impotent, but it acts like it's in charge. And the elephant is the other 99% of the mind, which really runs most of our behavior. Most of us spend a lot of our time trying to persuade other people's riders. We give them all these reasons. Here are the 7 reasons why you're wrong or why you should see it my way. When in fact, the way to persuade people is to speak to the elephant first. The elephant is a lot stronger than the rider. If you get somebody feeling the truth of what you're saying, or feeling that they like you or like what you're saying, and the elephant kind of wants to go in your direction, then it's effortless to persuade the rider to go along. But if the elephant is digging in its heels, the elephant doesn't want to go, doesn't want to be dragged along by you to the conclusion that you're trying to get him to, then there's really nothing you can say that will persuade the rider.
We're always told that in arguments we should have empathy for the other side and speak to their sentiments. And here we see psychologically why that's so important. Reason alone doesn't do the job. As Haidt discovered in his research for his book The Righteous Mind, everyone is convinced of their own rationality, open-mindedness, and enlightenment. It is therefore of the utmost importance to understand one another, instead of using reason to fend off opposing views. The idea that we should speak to people's elephant before their rider is nothing new. It's fundamental to the art of rhetoric, and has been for a long time. The province of rhetoric, wrote Chinese philosopher Confucius, is about cultivating mutual understanding, about fostering an ever-growing web of interpersonal relationships. But what are the rhetorical tools for cultivating this mutual understanding? And how do we use them to talk to people's elephants? In his treatise on rhetoric, ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle laid out his 3 means of persuasion. To him, a persuasive and effective speaker was someone who could use all 3. Rhetoric, he wrote, is the faculty of discovering in any particular case all of the available means of persuasion. In other words, deciding which of them to use depends on your purpose in the argument, the place and time, and especially the audience. But if you use them all together and you use them well, they can help you speak to other people's elephants before their rider. First is ethos, an argument by character, which uses the persuader's personality, reputation, and ability to look trustworthy. Ethos is used in ads all the time to establish credibility.
The first luxury brand awarded top safety ratings across its entire model line.
It's also used to show the overall virtue of the speaker and their goodwill toward the audience.
But today were I to offer, after little more than a week in office, detailed legislation to remedy every national ill, the Congress would rightly wonder whether the desire for speed had replaced the duty of responsibility.
Aristotle believed ethos was the most important form of persuasion. As one of his contemporaries wrote, "A person's life persuades better than their word." After ethos is pathos, an argument by emotion. It's the appeal to a person or audience's sense of identity, self-interest, and sentiments.
My poor little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
The most persuasive pathos appeal is humor. A sense of humor calms people down and it makes you appear to stand above petty disagreements. It's also an ethos enhancer. Good humor shows you have personality and it often establishes common ground with an audience. In terms of people's elephants, a laugh is about as intuitive as it gets.
We eat, because we want to have a good time. Really, that's all a vacation is. Just us eating in a place we've never been. Well, why don't we eat something, then we'll go and get something to eat.
And finally, there's logos, an argument by logic, which attempts to persuade the audience by making a reasonable claim and offering proof in support of that claim.
But on average, geography has a huge impact on American health and longevity. Like the Eastern Kentucky communities where life expectancy is under 70 have higher rates of tobacco usage than the Central Colorado communities where life expectancy is over 85. But Eastern Kentucky is also poorer and has fewer doctors.
This one's a little harder when it comes to people's elephants. Haidt told us that reason alone doesn't work, but there are actually logos tricks to getting people to like and trust you. The most important one is a concession. Concessions are using your opponent's argument to your own advantage. By admitting the validity of a point claimed in their argument, you indicate that you're not only listening, but that you're seeing their side. Concessions are a way for you to give their elephant a little bit so that your counter-argument has an easier time getting through to them. Now, all of this is not to say facts and reasoning aren't important in persuasion. Indeed, it's easy to be sold on a convincing feeling, but that feeling is not always backed up empirically. If you end up in an argument and the other person runs out of logic, it usually means your position is stronger. But if you haven't established either ethos or pathos and you haven't tried to make concessions or show good humor, then your facts and logic won't matter. You never spoke to their elephant. They will more than likely end up attacking you personally, calling your facts irrelevant, or they'll ignore you. As the best speakers in history from Cicero to Lincoln to Martin Luther King Jr. knew, you need all of the means of persuasion to get people to like and trust you. Use skillfully. They convince your audience that what you're saying feels true, and they'll want to hear your side. I want to look at an example where these three means of persuasion are used to perfection. In 1969, the late great Fred Rogers, known to most as Mr. Rogers from his children's program on PBS, had a hearing in the Senate. It was one in a series of hearings that were held with the intention of cutting PBS's $20 million budget in half. In the short period of 6 minutes, Senator Pastore, known by many to be a tough guy, goes from being abrasive towards Rogers to being absolutely enthralled by him. In fact, he found Rogers' passion for children's public television and the potential it had to help children grow into better people so convincing that he ended up increasing PBS's budget to $22 million. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but let's look at some key moments and see how the three means of persuasion play into them.
All right, Rogers, you got the floor.
Senator Pastore, this is a philosophical statement and would take about 10 minutes to read, so I'll not do that. One of the first things that a child learns in a healthy family is trust, and I trust what you have said that you will read this. It's very important to me. I care deeply about children,
In his intro, Rogers piles on ethos. This makes sense. It's the best way to establish trust and liking with an audience. This line especially is a beautiful one. It equates a healthy family to Rogers' trust in Pastore himself. This frames the discussion between them as a familial one. And you've probably already noticed how calm Rogers is. That's important. Known to be the greatest orator in history, Roman consul Cicero believed that a speaker transforms himself into an emotional role model, showing the audience how it should feel.
My first
Will
children...
it make you happy if you read it?
I'd just like to talk about it, if it's all right.
Sir. Okay.
My first children's program was on WQED 15 years ago, and its budget was $30. Now, with the help of the Sears Roebuck Foundation and National Educational Television, as well as all of the affiliated stations, each station pays to show our program. It's a unique kind of funding in educational television. With this help, now our program has a budget of $6,000. It may sound like quite a difference, but $6,000 pays for less than 2 minutes of cartoons, 2 minutes of animated, what I sometimes say, bombardment. I'm very much concerned, as I know you are, about what's being delivered to our children in this country.
This part's important. He creates more common ground between them. They're both concerned about the well-being of the nation's children. Pastore was once a child, he has a family, and it's his job to represent the needs of Americans as a senator.
And I've worked in the field of child development for 6 years now, trying to understand the inner needs of children. We deal with such things as the inner drama of childhood. We don't have to bop somebody over the head to make him to make drama on the screen. We deal with such things as getting a haircut, or the feelings about brothers and sisters, and the kind of anger that arises in simple family situations. And we speak to it constructively.
Could we get a copy of this so that we can see it? Maybe not today, but I'd like to see the program.
I'd like very much for you
I'd
to
like to see the program itself, or any one of them, you see.
We made 100 programs for EEN, the Eastern Educational Network, and then when the money ran out, people in Boston and Pittsburgh and Chicago all came to the fore and said, we've got to have more of this neighborhood expression of care. And this is what I give. I give an expression of care every day to each child to help him realize that he is unique. I end the program by saying, you've made this day a special day by just your being you. There's no person in the whole world like you, and I like you just the way you are. And I feel that if we in public television can only make it clear that feelings are mentionable and manageable, we will have done a great service for mental health. I think that it's much more dramatic that two men could be working out their feelings of anger. Much more dramatic than showing something of gunfire. I'm constantly concerned about what our children are seeing. And for 15 years I have tried in this country and Canada to present what I feel is a meaningful expression of care.
Do you narrate it?
I'm the host, yes. And I do all the puppets, and I write all the music, and I write all the script.
Well, I'm supposed to be a pretty tough guy, and this is the first time I've had goosebumps for the last 2 days.
Well, I'm grateful not only for your goosebumps, but for your interest in our kind of communication.
This simple statement says thank you for truly listening, but it also points out to the senator that it's a clear sign he should approve the funding request. Rogers finishes by telling Pastore the words of a song from his show. This is what's known as an enargeia in rhetoric. He's already used it once. The idea is to bring the audience into a scene and make them feel present, as if Pastore is at the show himself. It's a pathos appeal, and it's a great way to end. Ending on an emotional note is the best way to change people's minds and get them to take action.
Could I tell you the words of one of the songs which I feel is very important?
Yes.
This has to do with that good feeling of control, which I feel that children need to know is there. And it starts out, what do you do with the mad that you feel? And that first line came straight from a child. I work with children, doing puppets in very personal communication with small groups. What do you do with the mad that you feel? When you feel so mad you could bite. When the whole wide world seems oh so wrong, and nothing you do seems very right. What do? Do you punch a bag? Do you pound some clay or some dough? Do you round up friends for a game of tag or see how fast you go? It's great to be able to stop when you've planned a thing that's wrong and be able to do something else instead and think this song. I can stop when I want to, can stop when I wish, can stop anytime. And what a good feeling to feel like this and know that the feeling is really mine. Know that there's something deep inside that helps us become what we can. For a girl can be someday a lady, and a boy can be someday a man.
I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful. Looks like you just earned the $20 million.
You don't need a deconstruction of this interaction to see the merit in Rogers' testimony. His calm demeanor and earnestness alone might persuade even the most curmudgeonly person to his side. But whether he used these persuasive techniques wittingly or not, they are the reason this interaction was so successful. Sure, Rogers' position here is a strong one, but I think if he used the same techniques to argue something more controversial, he'd disarm even the most oppositional person. He skillfully used the means of persuasion to speak to Pastore's elephant, and the rider came right along with it. What I think differentiates this exchange from so many others that I see today is that it's actually an argument. Nowadays, we mostly just see fights. The Greeks were very purposeful in this distinction. They knew that in a fight, all you do is try and win. In an argument, however, you try to win over an audience. As rhetorician Jay Heinrichs writes, a fight never persuades, it only inspires revenge or retreat. An argument gets people to do what you want. It's a means to a solution. Fights happen because people haven't done the persuasive groundwork.
Bart, just get out of here. Hey, it's a free country, you get out. That doesn't make sense. I know you are, but what am I? Get out, get out!
In fights, one side wants the other to hear their own sentiments, their own logic, and they assault each other's ethos. Remember that ethos, pathos, and logos are an appeal to the audience, not the speaker. If you want to conduct an argument instead of a fight, then all the means of persuasion must speak to the other person's elephant. Once you've done that, then you can start throwing more contentious points of reasoning and logic from your side out there. But, as we learned from Rogers, you still have to use all the means of persuasion in harmony. Engaging in arguments rather than fights sounds really basic, but it's extremely important. A great example comes from research psychologist John Gottman and his Love Lab at the University of Washington. In the 1980s and 90s, Gottman taped hundreds of married couples and their arguments over the course of 9 years. His team then entered every conceivable emotion and logical point from those arguments into a database. Gottman found that married couples argued as much as those who ended in divorce. But the successful couples used arguments differently. They used them to solve problems and work out differences. They showed faith in the outcome. The unsuccessful couples, on the other hand, used their sessions to attack each other. They were constantly defensive, overly critical, and contemptuous of each other. In other words, the happy couples argued, and the unhappy ones fought. I think one of the big problems in all of this as well is the language we use to describe arguments. Language drastically affects how we perceive reality, and in American culture at least, we frame arguments like fights, like war. As cognitive linguist George Lakoff points out, we attack their positions and we defend our own. We gain and lose ground. If we find a position indefensible, we can abandon it and take a new line of attack. We shoot down all of their arguments. We dig in. The person on the other side of the argument is seen as an enemy. Instead, I agree with Lakoff when he says we could frame arguments like dances. The means of persuasion are much more prevalent in this metaphor. One person comes forward to reach out to the other. They are opposites, but they work together. They are cooperating. The argument becomes more about agreement than disagreement. Indeed, we don't argue with someone unless we have some common interest with them. We need to persuade them because we are interested in working with them to achieve some end. So often when I see political situations like this, especially on tribal media like Twitter and Facebook, I immediately frame it in my head as the war between good and evil, not a dance between mutually interested groups. But these are rarely good versus evil scenarios. And don't get me wrong, there are exceptions of truly ill-intentioned people. But most of the time, it's just two humans with different viewpoints and goals, and both could potentially be convinced of the other's viewpoints and goals. If I always frame things as good versus evil, then I'm going to write off huge swaths of people for no reason. I do it more often than I want to. I see evil in the person on the other side of the argument before I even read or listen to anything. And that's a problem when it comes to learning the full picture and finding a better synthesis of ideas and beliefs. The only way for the whole truth to emerge, wrote philosopher John Stuart Mill, is by the reconciling and combining of opposites. I can't learn, I can't help, and I can't persuade if I don't listen. I want to add two caveats in all of this. History has shown us that when one side makes repeated attempts to argue for political and civil rights, but they aren't listened to by the other side, then the only answer is civil disobedience. But movements like this should never precede a genuine attempt at discourse with the other side. Protest without discussion means limiting your chance to convince the other side to come to yours. It also limits your chance to disprove their argument. If you never give them a chance to tell their side, or you force them to believe something, then it's unlikely they'll ever come to your side. As Lincoln once cautioned, dictate a man's judgment, command his action, or mark him to be despised, and he will retreat within himself, close all the avenues to his head and his heart. And even though your cause be naked truth itself, transformed to the heaviest lance, harder than steel and sharper than steel can be made, and though you throw it with more Herculean force and precision, you shall be no more able to pierce him than to penetrate the hard shell of a tortoise with a rye straw. The second caveat is that means of persuasion can be used as much for deception as they can for good. That's also why it's important to know when you've been put under the spell of persuasion. The best defense against a master persuader is knowing their tools, so you can recognize when you're being duped. I'm a firm believer that the best storytellers, articulators, and persuaders not only have the strongest relationships with people, but they also run the world. They know how to get friends and audiences to like and trust them. They know that facts don't change opinions unless they first speak to people's sentiments, their sense of identity, and self-interest. And ultimately, they know how to get people to take action. Putting the means of persuasion into practice is not easy. Sometimes I just want to shoot down the other person's argument and call them stupid. It's easy for me to forget that arguments aren't about winning, they're about winning people over to your side. That's why it's important to find commonality and trust before getting into a contentious argument or working out a problem, even with people you believe are beneath contempt. As Jonathan Haidt says, if you really want to open your mind, open your heart first. We are deeply intuitive creatures whose gut feelings drive our strategic reasoning. The persuader's goal should be to convey respect and warmth and an openness to dialogue before stating one's own case. Praise, humor, and sincere expressions of interest go a long way in getting people to hear your side. I'll add to that list a good story. Stories help find commonality between people's experience and values. They break down prejudice and difference, and they create trust. Once you skillfully establish these forms of persuasion, you might have a chance for the opposition to hear your side. And maybe, with enough reasoning and logic or a good story, you'll even bring them to your side. If we want to enact change with our arguments, whether it be with family, in our business, or in politics, then I think we can all take a cue from Fred Rogers. He told children for 3 decades that they are valuable and that their opinion is valuable. That's exactly how we should see the people with whom we argue. As Hume knew long ago, truth only springs from an argument among friends. The key word being friends.
You've made this day a special day by just your being you. There's no person in the whole world like you, and I like you just the way you are.
All right. Well, what do you think of that? You have some questions in the chat, and I want you to discuss them, but I want you to discuss them in small groups, because this is too big of a group for us to all talk together. So let's do that. Let's create new groups, though. Recreate these. So the questions to discuss, just to remind you guys, where's the chat button, are: what do you think of the idea that our logic and reasoning are slaves to our passion and intuitions? Has your elephant ever gone somewhere your rider didn't want it to? Have you ever been convinced this way? And then 3, what can you steal from this whole video, from Rogers, this whole video, this whole idea? What can you take from it? Here are your rooms. We're going to talk in these for about, say about 10 minutes, and then I'll pull you guys back. If you get done in your group and you've discussed everything, feel free to take a break, but I'll pull you guys back at 7:05.
Baby, I love you.
Not right now, buddy. Mr. Benjamin. Hey, bud.
This is your sign to stop listening to rap music. This is what to do with your rap music playlist. Throw it in the trash. If you great main chick and a real bad hoe, that's left, right, go. Room, three beds, I was giving me press for got free short things to the squad like I'm gonna take your chick, like it's sleeping the night. You are from honest, to the life. From the top of my tree, I'm crossing the line. I'm BBNO, when we got Mr. Zero, bro, make a typo. My girl got a girl, she an info. Ain't too good, I think I need lipo. Up 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm a psycho. I'm as in $1,000,000, that's two. More than I'm giving in, fuck, that's two. Shotties with a big old butt, that's two. Board you out of sets on a truck. One to the kidney, two to the dog. That's left, right, go. Got a wood for the brunch and a paddock for the show. That's left, right, go. Got a big new body and a whip it like a pro. That's left, right, go. Got a great main chick.
Welcome back. All right. That should pull everybody back. Yay. Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. All right. So hopefully you had a good conversation. Does anybody in your groups, any group, come up with anything that you're like, I'd like to share this with the class? No worries. Well, I got something for you to do then instead. So the next thing we're going to do is a fun project. I think it's fun for you guys. Let's look at the rules for it. So this is another small group project. I'm going to put you in small groups, and in your small groups, I'm going to give you new ones. First, check and make sure everybody understands what ethos, logos, and pathos is. By this point, everybody should. I think we've nailed this thing to the ground. I want you to take out the hot topics list that you should have downloaded at the beginning of class. If you didn't, it's in the module 7. Go grab it. You'll see a list of hot debatable topics. None of them are important. All of them are debatable. I want you as a group to pick one and pick a side on it. And then your group is going to come up with a skit where your group is going to argue ethos, logos, and pathos using all three. Try and persuade the class to agree with you on the side that you took on your hot topic. You can emphasize your group's credibility. You can also, for ethos, cite sources if you can come up with any. You can use the logic of your stance to argue for your logos, and you can use emotional appeal to help people agree with you. You can also use any of the subcategories of those. So does that make sense, everybody, as far as how this will work? Any questions before I put you guys into groups to work on this? All right. So for this, your groups are going to be, if I can do it right, are going to be 3 to 4 people. So some groups are going to have 4 people, some have 3. For the groups that have 3 people, it makes total sense to me that if you do one each, one person takes ethos, logos, pathos, but it's up to your group how you want to do it. For the groups that have 4 people, just discuss it. Maybe one of you ends up sitting out, but maybe that person frames the whole thing. I don't know. But you all need to pick one of the topics, look at the list. It might take you a minute looking at the list of things because they're pretty ridiculous if you haven't looked at that list yet. But you have to pick one that you all agree on and take a stance, and then try and convince the class when you come back. So this is going to take a minute for you guys to do some planning. I want to pull you guys back at 7:30. So that's 22 minutes from now. That's enough time for you as a group to make a decision and then really plan for what you're going to say, how you're going to use ethos, logos, and pathos to convince us of whatever stance you've taken. Does that make sense, guys? No questions? All right, here we go. Your rooms are there. I'll be here if you have any questions. Do you not see one, Jacob?
Sorry, I'm just having a little technical difficulty.
Oh, it's okay. Well, the room's got wonky anyway. Room 5. Move you to room 5. Oh, 20 minutes. Do with that.
A real bad hoe. That's left, right, go. Outside shining with a shine, it's shining with a sweet new honey, like ooh la la. Doing what I'm shining, doing things that bunnies, yo man, I'm selling to the ready that guy. Only on fast, love cheese, one keto. Grab my girl like a pussy cat, pico. Uncle, pop that pussy like Clito. Dust on the table, I ain't talking no keto. Bands on bands on bands on bands. Yeah, pay millions on my tags. Bands on bands on bands on bands. Bet on me, that's a one fat plan. Doing that dance. Shaking that jitty, yeah, shaking that jam. Taking that advance. So much cash to put you in France. Right, go. That's right, go. That's right, go. That's right, go.
This moved out like 5 minutes ago, so we could be. They're making skits right now.
I've got a cool pants up at the knee. I got a nice new Pearl Jam hoodie that we can share because it's definitely oversized.
Oh yeah.
It's a nice quality hoodie too. And then I got a shirt. What else did I get? Did I get that?
Too, right?
Yeah, I thought about that. Yeah, yeah, sweet. Yeah, so like nice clothes. Very nice.
My class is making skits right now for the next like 10-15 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll be performing them and then. In class for all of them.
Oh, there's food.
I thought of that.
Who you barking at? Who you barking? Barking.
Hey. Fit. Your little monster. Got a pair of gloves which apparently didn't text me with. Hey. Good night, right? It kind of looks like a whole look.
Yeah, very good together.
And it all. Oh, it smells good, like it was just plain, I think. nice. Like us brought it in. Yeah. I'm just gonna write that all the time, bro. Stop.
We've got 10 minutes.
But yeah, some good deals.
I love the size of the good little too. Which one did you go to?
The one that we discovered.
Oh yeah, that was big. Yeah. The ones that I've only been to a big girl, they're in that size maybe.
Oh, we'll have to
they're like small.
We'll have to take you to a Goodwill.
There's that giant one, yeah. Ridiculous.
There's this Goodwill that they have a bunch of shit in bins and it hasn't gone through yet. Been gone through. People know like the days and times to go and they fucking take these people out.
It just feels weird though. It feels kind of grimy.
It's grimy as fuck. You definitely go with like gloves, but you can find good shit there. You can find really because nothing's been picked through yet.
If you know when to go,
Yeah, you have to know the times and everything. But I found some nice stuff that just wasn't in my size. But there's also this other Goodwill, and it is over south of Central District, right? Technically south of Central District.
I would say it's south of downtown. I don't know how to say it.
Closer to over where we used to live. And it's fucking huge. Huge.
Yeah,
Like how big that was today. That's one area of that Goodwill.
How about double what you just went to?
Whoa.
What's that?
I'd say probably about double that one, right?
Yeah.
Like two of those put together.
Yeah.
About half an hour. I'm probably going right up to 8. That works.
After making a hit, especially something as big as La 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 was, it like poisoned your brain.
There was a while where I was like, "Oh, this is just garbage," because I was just trying to reproduce that. At that exact moment, I was like, "I want to do this for the rest of my life." Armenia's gonna come after me on this one for sure. What are they? There's been several times where I'm just like sitting on a plane and I'm like, if this thing crashed right now, I'd be totally okay. We have to keep moving. We have to keep doing things. I don't know if I will ever be content.
This episode is sponsored by Bet. All right, everybody.
My Twizzy is here.
Dude, we don't look alike anymore. Why is our hair a different color?
I got lids.
Editor, make our hair the same color. Today we're back with my twin, Baby No Money. We are going to watch some of our older stuff.
Listen to some of our older stuff.
We're listening to never before heard Baby No Money tracks. We're watching never before seen Crispy videos. It should be fun. We're gonna laugh. We're gonna cry. We're gonna cringe. Yeah, we're gonna cringe
For sure.
All right. Today I'm on Omegle, but I cloned myself. This is Baby No Money.
We're gonna be acting as ourselves, but ourselves are twins on Omegle.
Hey,
Hi,
what's up? Where are you from?
I'm from America.
All right, everybody.
My Twizzy is here.
Dude, we don't look.
What am I seeing right there? What are those little pixels? Weird. Strange. Close the rooms. People aren't sprinting back as fast this time. I'm like, oh my god, we have 1 minute. Man. Welcome back. You guys feeling ready? Good. Ethan, your camera's like sideways. Yeah, I guess it was. There you go, Case. You fixed it. Three, two, one. There we go. All right. Everybody should be back. Ta-da. All right. Welcome back, everybody.
You need more
So-
time.
Oh, no. Oh no, yeah, that can happen. So for this activity, if your group did not have enough time, just present what you have, and we'll learn from it still. Don't worry about it too much. This activity can be kind of goofy. One group called me in to clarify and had completely misunderstood what I had wanted anyway. So it's an excellent chance that who knows what'll happen. So let's just see what we got, and we'll learn from it anyway. Group 1 is Alyssa, Amy. Oh, Amy, you just said you need more time. Oh no. Well, Alyssa, Amy, and Elena, you guys are group 1. You're up first. What do you got?
Okay, I will choose as a topic. Oh, I write it down about the clown. Whether clowns are more scary than funny, and each one choose the ethos, logos, or pathos way to perceive about this topic. And mine was ethos. And as I understood it in a correct way, I need to be like more emotional and authority, because
The
mine is
authority, sure.
ethos.
Yes.
Yeah. So I will pretend as I know about the clown thing as much as I could. So, and by the topic about the clowns being scary or being funny, we all know that the clown will known as a funny thing. All circus and theaters have clown as a person who make fun between the shows. So they should to be funny. They should to warm audience for the next one thing, and the clowns need to be talkative, like talk too much, to perceive you to be part of the show. That's why they are so funny and nice to children, nice to people, and they established like the thing that make you happy, make you part of the life. That's why probably people too scary about the clown, because they do you to do something then they want you to do, not like you. They make you up on a scene. When this is a big circus and clowns come to you and say, okay, young lady, in my case, what song will you sing to this huge audience? And you cannot sing song because you're all attention of audience up to you. That makes clowns scary. Very scary. And also, I found out by this topic that a lot of time, a lot of people use the clown's kindness to push people to do something bad. That's why clowns so scary. They put you on a scene and make you to do something and scary you. So, by this topic, my answer is so whether clown are more scary than funny? Yes, they are much more scary and much more funny because they can make funny of you in a bad way. Like,
Excellent.
oh, you're saying this sounds so bad.
Yeah.
Don't do this ever again. You're like, stop singing a song.
That was good. And who's next in your group? Do you guys not go
After that?
further than that? It's okay.
I can just say something.
Yeah.
I can speak off my mind based off whatever I've researched already.
Mhm.
So clowns can be pretty scary due to how media portrays them, and also because of how media portrays it, it actually evokes a psychological phenomenon known as the uncanny valley, which is when something basically looks human, but it does not look right. Like, for example, it has exaggerated features. And clowns often seem to have that because of their makeup, and that can make people pretty uncomfortable. And also because of the makeup, you really often have a hard time telling whether the person behind the makeup is actually good intentioned or bad intentioned.
These are good. These are good. So far, these are excellent. Excellent. Do you have anything else? It's okay if that's it.
No, I don't have anything.
Good job, guys. So I would say, good job, team. That was mostly logic, is what I would say. Mostly what I heard there was arguments that were logical, which is excellent. I'm really curious because logic really is what we're trained in the West generally to use the most. We're trained in our essays. If you've ever written an essay, you're told to use logic, logic, logic. So you're supposed to get your facts together, marshal them, and put them in order and write an essay. And you don't get encouraged to use pathos and ethos as much. So they're harder to understand exactly when you're using them and not. So I really like when you guys used the like you're using sources. If you have a lot of time to prepare this, you could use like all of that. You could end up citing those sources. Like if you did some research, you could say, according to this panel, and then you'd be using ethos, because then you'd be citing people and saying, according to this expert, which is really hard to pull in when you have 15 minutes to prepare a presentation. But good job, guys. That was excellent.
Actually, I think I do want to add on to something because now that I thought about it, there is actually a serial killer that was known as John Wayne Gacy who would dress up as a clown, and he ended up killing like 33 people by luring them into like this, and by luring them into like a house and then like handcuffing them and then
Yeesh.
doing really bad sexual acts to them before killing them.
Yeah. So again, that's really good. So if we were to use, so there's different ways we could use that, right? If we used that as evidence to support our argument, that'd be logic. If we were to find a way to use him, especially if we got a quote from him and like said, hey, being a clown was the best way that I could lure people in. It worked really, really well. That would be a masterful use of ethos, right? Because then you're pulling in a quote from this guy who was a murderer using clowns, right? You could also describe what he did and really motivate people with pathos, which I don't want you to do. I think we've gotten about as far as I want to get in the description.
Yeah, I was actually going to do that in the beginning, but I was like, maybe I should not do that.
Right. Trigger warning, please. But yeah, absolutely, that would work. People would go, oh, and you'd be motivating us. So excellent. Good job, team one. How about team two, which is Evgeny, Griffin, Oliver, and Zeta?
Yeah, so our topic was why reading books is better than listening to them. So for ethos, I did ethos. I've always kind of been like a big reader. I mean, I have the big bookshelf of like a collection for about 10 years worth of books, most of which I've read at least a little bit of. I thought recently that after all those years of reading books in print, it'd be nice to get a subscription to Audible and start listening to audiobooks, because that's kind of like the natural continuation of that. But almost immediately I ended up canceling that subscription, and it wasn't because I couldn't listen to audiobooks, but the experience, I think, was very different. It was kind of like the difference between a conversation versus a lesson, or listening in on a lecture versus like actually being there in the lecture. And I didn't realize that I had taken for granted a lot of the benefits of actively reading paper books. And really the main benefit that was lost, and that really did the trick for me, was the loss of the ability to like make notes and highlight sentences, write little things in the margins. And I hadn't like realized like how much I had used that, because sometimes I would go back through like my old books and kind of see what I was writing and kind of help get in that headspace that I was in at the time. Help get in that headspace that I was in at the time. And then when something was gone, when I read kind of denser, more difficult texts and that wasn't there, it was a lot more difficult to process audibly. So, Zeta.
Excellent. All right. And next. Good job, Griffin. Who's next in your group?
Zeta's next, but her internet's been cutting out.
Oh, no.
So hopefully, I don't know.
We can skip Zeta and go to the whoever's after Zeta. Oh, Zeta's here.
You're muted.
My connection is so bad.
Yeah.
But okay, I have my thing ready. I'm sorry. Okay. For me growing up, I read a lot, and I really loved it because it felt like I was part of the story. Like I could imagine myself being the character. And I could also imagine everything about the character down to their voice, what they wear, what they look like, everything like that. And with an audiobook, you're being told the story secondhand almost. And you I mean, you're being told the story by in one different viewpoint. Like when you're reading it yourself, you can imagine it however you want, like I mentioned, but you're only hearing it how someone else imagines it when they're telling you audibly. And another thing is that you set the pace of understanding for yourself. So you can always go back and reread something, and it takes like 2 seconds. And you can go back and reread like a sentence that stuck with you or that made any sort of impact on you at all. But honestly, who is going to go and rewind their audiobook? It takes far too long. Um, and then also skipping through it to try and find something that really stuck with you, that also takes far too long. Um, but yeah, I think that it also really shaped me when I was younger to read those books because um I actually read my favorite book of all time in this class for speech. And I think that just goes to show how impactful books can be when you read them physically.
Nice. Nice. All right. And who's next? Is anybody next? Evgeny?
Scientists, yep, me. Scientists have wondered what is better and made their studies regarding that. Studies show that reading a book can boost comprehension, focus, and memory retention compared to the listening. Readers often score higher on comprehension tests, likely because reading requires deep focus, whereas listening encourages multitasking, which can also lower understanding.
Reading also promotes vocabulary growth. Research shows that reading is 50% more effective for learning new words than listening. Plus, reading before bed has been linked to stress reduction and better sleep, while audiobooks can keep the brain more stimulated, especially if using a device that emits blue light, it can be hard to sleep. Overall, reading tends to support deeper learning and cognitive benefit. That's it.
Outstanding. Was that the end, Oliver? Sorry.
That's the end.
That's the end. Good job, guys. Wow.
Yeah, me and
So,
Evgeny
yeah.
teamed up on the last one.
Oh no, that sounded fantastic. So everybody steal all of this. So like, yeah, so the first one, Griffin, that was an excellent job of establishing ethos, right? Like you established that you're a reader. You told us about all of your experience with it. You have your library behind you. That was ethos very heavy. That was excellent. And that's something you guys can steal. I loved Zeta pulling us along with the Energia, which was like, there's a mental picture there, how it feels. You were telling us how it feels to read versus how it feels to listen to a book, which I appreciated. That was clever. And then the logic at the end was hard to ignore. That was perfect. That was very good. That was a good a good way to see the difference between the three. Steal all that, guys. Nice job, work team 2. How about team 3? We got Gracie, Parsini, and Zyra.
Okay, so we also did the clowns, and it sounds very similar to the first group that went, which is crazy because I feel like you guys were literally in our breakout room because we said almost the exact same thing. But I'm gonna start out by saying that a big part of how, like, our decision as to make them that they are more scary than funny is definitely how the media portrays them. And growing up, I don't think I've ever seen a clown that I didn't find absolutely terrifying. And they're just not the same as like a lot of people who are maybe older than I am think that they are. But if Parsini wants to go with our evidence.
Yeah, so actually, many psychologists and cultural experts, and even just people in general, consider that clowns can really evoke a sense of unease or fear in a lot of people. And many psychologists do that, like cause that. is that's because there's a lot of exaggerated features, as the group earlier was saying, and unpredictable behavior associated with clowns, and that actually falls under a category. And there's actually a phobia named coulrophobia. So there's actually a phobia defined under a fear of clowns. And so it's not a minor issue, and coulrophobia actually affects around 12% of the population in America. And additionally, movies like The Joker or It have really built upon cementing this fear of clowns and really exaggerating on the facial makeup and oversized features to show that they're really dangerous and scary. And that can really disrupt our typical understanding of human facial expressions, which also is what makes clowns so scary to so many people. Thank you, Zara.
Yeah, so clowns basically are pranksters, jesters, jokers, the way they laugh. I mean, the three of us believe they're just scary for sure. So there's no argument of where we can find that a clown can be funny anymore. As they can also take advantage of, some of them can take advantage of their profession, of their job, like we saw with the previous group about John Gacy. But yeah, that was it.
Excellent. Good job, guys. I know somebody else took your topic, but you guys did well. I liked Gracie's personal touch. Like, you're right. When you're going to share ethos, talk about yourself, right? When you are sharing your speech for your persuasive speech, you're probably trying to persuade us to something that you yourself believe, right? So talk about yourself. You are going to be the most persuasive piece of evidence that we're going to see. So talk about yourself. Why do you believe this? And then I love that you guys did so much research in like 10 minutes. That was incredible. So good job. Yeah, that's excellent. Group 4 is Andrea, London, and Marina. Who's up next?
Hello, I'm first. We did the stubbing your toe versus banging your elbow. And we aim to argue that stubbing your toe is arguably worse. Remember when you stubbed your toe and it hurt to put a sock on for 3 days or so? Or it hurt to put a shoe on? Or your toenail got infected? Me personally, I have. Maybe I've hit my elbow on the wall, which was a little bit of a sharp pain. But when I stubbed my toe, I felt the toenail go in, a stinging pain, a lasting pain. And it was terrible and painful and lasting and agonizing.
Okay. Yeah, me. Scientifically speaking, the toes have more nerves than the elbow and have less muscle to protect them. So the shock is felt intensely. When we stub our toes, signals are sent to the brain and we feel longer lasting pain. And when we hit the elbows, especially the ulnar nerve, close pain we can feel in our whole arm. But in the elbow, the pain lasts less time than the toes.
So because I've stubbed my toe before and I've banged my elbow before, I can tell you that stubbing your toe is worse.
Perfect. Is that it? Because that's actually great. London, that's fine if that's all that you have. That's perfect job for ethos. I have done both, and this one's worse. I mean, right? That's great. You could go like Marina did and just talk about the pain and the agony, but that was also a great anargia. That was a really good mental, like, beautiful picture of the pain and the agony. You guys, that was perfect. Pain and agony and a mental picture followed by pure logic, ended with London just saying, I've done both and this is worse. Who are you going to believe? The media, who's telling you that the elbows are worse. No, you're going to believe London, who's done both. He's right here. Vote London. I mean, that was excellent. Excellent job, guys. That was really good. In your persuasive speech, it'll be a little tough to be like, I'm right. But you need to add more to it, right? But paint a picture for us. That's a strong argument, isn't it? Isn't it very strong for somebody to be like, I've experienced both of these things and this is better? Especially if they just stop right there like London did. That's very strong. Just to be like, I'm right. I've experienced this. What are you going to say about it? Aliens are real. I've met one. What do you say to that person? Yeah, it's very good. Now we go to group 5, Ethan, Case, and Kaylin.
So we also did the clowns. Very popular. But okay. Imagine this. You're driving down the interstate late at night. It is pouring out. And your car all of a sudden gets that horrible beep, low gas, and need to pull over. You're fiddling with your phone, trying to figure out a way to get home. And then you look to your left and you're very confused. You're like, wait, what is that? What is that bright polka dot shirt poking through the eerie shade of the rain? And looking back at you are two bright black eyes and a distorted face with very eerie human facial features, but they aren't really facial features. It's a clown. And I don't know about you, but I would be scared shitless if I was in this situation. So take a moment and think, would they really be funny in this situation? Or would you be scared too?
I am next, and I did logos, although there's a little bit of ethos tied in with it. So according to Laboratories of Neurological Research in Boston, Massachusetts, fear is one of the very first emotions that we respond to when we're processing other people's facial features. And fear is a very strong emotion. In studies done on 7-month-old infants, they showed greater brain activity when they were looking at fearful faces than when looking at any other facial emotions. And so considering all of this, we can say that fear is a very strong emotion. And also when children are examining facial features, it's something that they do in order to gather information about their social environment. So it's important for us to trust other people's facial features.
And I was doing the ethos side of things. And from personal experience of being a kid growing up in the early 2000s, clowns were not marketed to me as something silly or funny. Although the concept of a carnival did exist to me, when I think of carnival or circus or anything, I don't really think of clowns. I think of this scary clown video game that I saw a little bit ago because of that fear. It stayed with me and it associated clowns to bad things. Furthermore, I think especially the two other groups mentioned that clowns in media are portrayed as typically evil, ne'er-do-wells. In today's environment, I can really only name one mass media recognized clown, which is Ronald McDonald, and I wouldn't say he's too good of a soul either. All in all, I would say I will lend some credence to clowns being able to be funny, but I would say that a lot of the hilarity or even the scariness of clowns comes from the context and their actions rather than what they are. Although clowns can definitely be very scary with distorted and exaggerated facial features.
Outstanding. All of you, very good. That was really, really good. Kaylin, I like that you pointed out that when you're citing a source, you're also bringing in ethos. So for all of you guys, that's a 2-for-1 deal when you're doing your speech. Cite your sources. It only is ethos if your source is impressive. That source was, so it's good. Case, you did a little bit of concession there, and I just want to point that out because that's really smart to do, which is a Logos move, but it's still good to do. When you you could say when you said clowns can't be funny, they have the ability to be funny. I've just never seen one do it, but they have the ability to be. That's smart, right? Because that's saying, yeah, somebody might argue this. You're kind of already arguing against what the other side will say. So that was excellent, guys. Ethan, good job too. That was terrifying. So excellent job. I'm wondering, I'm probably going to take that one off this list because I don't think anybody's ever going to argue that clowns are funny, right? Like, who's that person? I'd love to have that happen in the class and I'll be like, you're what you're saying? Because
I would argue that clowns are funny.
You would like to?
Yeah.
I bet you could. I bet you could. I bet you could. Oh, we have one
I
more
love
group.
clowns.
You do? Oh man, I wish that your group had done that. I've never heard that argument. I grew up like seeing the movie It when it was the original one. And I saw it like after, anyway, I'm getting off track. We have team 6. Jacob, Jalen, and Vanessa.
We did the should schools ban uniforms, and we disagree. Imagine you're in 4th grade again. You stayed up all night watching American Idol with your parents, and you wake up and you got a big old test in the morning. You have to walk downstairs or into the laundry room, wherever, and figure out what you're going to wear without having to be ridiculed or made fun of by anybody else at school. So you kind of don't do your morning studying and you focus more on what you're going to wear. And this affects your test scores significantly. Having a uniform, not having to think about this, makes it relatively easy to continue focused on school. Researchers from Yale say that when a uniform is involved, test scores generally rise. Vanessa.
Hello. I'm going to do ethos on this one, and as we might all know that all 3 of us, Jacob, Jalen, and I, we were students. We are still students right now. So as a student who has experience wearing school uniforms, wore uniform when I was in elementary school through high school, I can speak about from my experience that having school uniforms creates a sense of equality, like has a benefit of creating a sense of safety and being equal to other people. And it can give me focus, make me focus more on studying instead of thinking, like Jacob said, what should I wear for tomorrow or today? And do I look pretty or trendy or up to date and everything? And knowing that, I know that some people might believe, I might think like, oh, but these school uniforms can limit like personal creativity, like personal preference or expressions. But I do believe that from those experience, I do think that the benefit outweighs those concerns. Like the research, I'm going to quote another research done by the University of Nevada from the Reno College of Education. They did a research in Washoe County School District in northern Nevada, and they make some surveys, and they found out that with these school uniforms, actually the number of discipline of punishment is actually less, and students having feeling of ease going to school, and they have confidence and self-esteem, and it decreases gang involvement and bullying as well. And in one of the survey, they asked the students if they, one of the questions is about, do they still feel like their identity? And 54% of them say that I still have my identity when I wear a uniform. And I think that's kind of support our belief about the school uniform. And like many of us here, I do want me as a student and also other students from elementary to high school alike they can thrive in their environment without worrying about what to wear to school. More focus on their studying.
Not only that, but quite frankly, school is not about, you don't go to school to really stand out. You go to school to learn, and that's the thing, in the real world, in the adult world, you don't get to wear whatever you want to work. So really it prepares you for, I mean, unless you're a Zoom teacher, just kidding. But so you don't get to wear whatever you want to work. And I mean, some people do, but it's just one of those things, and more than likely you're going to get a job in a business, or you are going to run your own business. And the way people perceive you is going to be a lot more important to you in your 20s and 30s and 40s versus what it's going to be to you when you're 16. So I think that school uniforms also really help encourage kids to understand that what's in front of them is a lot more important than what's on them per se, or vice versa. Vice versa. It's important to realize what's on you and how you are showing yourself versus just kind of wearing anything, like wearing pajamas to school. Which a lot of people, when I was in high school, a lot of people did that. They would wear pajamas or crop tops, and they would focus more on fighting with the teachers about and being combative about why they should be allowed to wear it. And I think as somebody who also got bullied for not having the latest fashion, I think I think school uniforms would have been beneficial, because we had a lot of people who who only cared about being cute. They didn't care about getting good grades. And that's why one of my high schools was one of the worst in the state of Washington for graduating scores. And we had a lot of teen pregnancy. So the end.
Very good. I'm curious. That was excellent, you three. I'm curious, for the rest of the class, how many of you are kind of leaning towards school uniforms aren't such a bad idea? And maybe how many of you weren't thinking that before you just heard all that? A few of you. Yeah, that was very persuasive, guys. Nice work. When you started, I was like, I wonder what you're going to say, because I only experienced school uniforms when I was in Japan as an exchange student. And I got to say, it was a game changer. I was like, wow, this should be in America. It made things just so much easier. And you guys nailed it. I think, yeah, I was a poor kid, and having a school uniform in Japan made everything equal. Anyway, I'm all just arguing with you now. Now I'm piggybacking. That was very persuasive. Good job, you three. That was excellent. All three of that. That was excellent. Excellent work, everybody. I think you guys all feel, it feels like you all feel pretty ready. Like this was a miniature of what we're going to see Thursday and next week, I think. I'm excited. So the last thing I want to do with you guys first is there's a, in the assignment, there are example speeches for you to watch. There's 4 of them. I would love to replace some of those with some of your guys' work, if you guys, depending on what happens. But I did want to just drop one example speech in the chat, because it is one of my favorite speeches that's come out of this class. This is a student arguing that sex workers should be respected and protected. I like to highlight this speech because this student hated this class. He hated this class. He was taking it just to get the credit, and he met with me before doing this speech just to yeah, no problem. I understand, Jalen. Yeah. This student was like, met with me beforehand to practice the speech, and even told me, he's like, I just need to pass this class. And in what he gave was one of my favorite performances I've seen so far. So I hopefully watch it, see what you can pull from it. There's 3 other examples, but the last thing I want to do is put you guys into some small groups, because I don't want anybody to leave without being ready for Thursday. So make sure you sign up. If you go sign, there's still spots on Thursday. If anybody, for those who go Thursday, you'll get 10 extra credit points. So if you haven't signed up for a spot yet, or you want those 10 points, sign up for Thursday. Otherwise, Thursday, Tuesday of next week. I think Tuesday is completely full. But I wanted to give you guys some time in small groups, even if you just meet and say, hi, I think I'm ready, I'm done, and leave. But I wanted to give you a chance to talk to each other about what your speech is going to be about. Make sure that nobody leaves here with, let me make the groups a little bit, there we go. I want to make sure that nobody leaves without having an idea. So share with your group what your idea is for your speech, do a little bit of last minute audience analysis, and then discuss, because this speech requires a hook and a sinker. So in the beginning, you need something to grab our attention. And at the end, you need something to grab our attention. So what could you use for that? That could be a quote. It could be a story. It could be a story that you start with and then end with, or just a story that you just stories you tell at one point. It could be statistics, shocking information, something to grab our attention at both ends of your speech. So you could share with each other different ideas for that as well. Otherwise, when you're done, you're free to go. And I'll see you guys on Thursday. Thanks for a good class. Here are your rooms.
I just had a question really quick.
Yeah, Gracie.
I have like, so the state is coming in on Thursday to evaluate where I work, and I can't make it to class. Is it possible? I know the spots are filled on Tuesday, and I like have to be there. They have to check off like every employee.
Yeah.
So is it possible for me to go on Tuesday even though the spots are full?
Absolutely. I'll just
Okay.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's fine. No problem.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Where do I'll just do it. Do it right now. Gracie, what you spell your last name? H-A, you're already gone. Just bolted out. I think it's Han, like H-A, Han, like Soto. H-A-H-N. Boom. Probably stop the recording.